Vamos. Seems like once upon a time ago I was where I was supposed to be. My vision was true and my heart was too. There was no end to what I could dream. I walked like a hero into the setting sun. Everyone called out my name. Death to me was just a mystery. I was too busy raising a cane. But nothing lasts forever. Your best efforts don't always pay. Sometimes you get sick and you don't get better. That's when life is short, even in its longest days. So you pretend.